What's wrong? Thank you, Jock. Now, Rex, what's the matter? I heard, and that's something I need to talk about. You see, the small controller told us to keep a good lookout for anything that could be related to his disappearance. Not sure, but he said we'll know it when we see it. A new engine? Did he say who? Hello. Welcome to our railway. We're happy to have you here. That wasn't nothing, Olivia. You saved many children's lives, and we're proud to have you as a part of our line and as a friend. These new coaches have done nothing but be insulting. They've been calling me a common tank engine ever since I arrived. What's the matter, Jock? You saw him, didn't you? Or at least felt his presence. It's a long story, and not one I wanted to be reminded of. Very well. Back when this line was known as the Mid-Sodor Railway, there was an engine that we all know called Duke. Throughout the years, there have been many other engines on the line, but Duke had outlasted them all. He worked hard and was very proud of his grace. However, his manager saw that he needed help. Said Duke, and the next day the new engine arrived. His name was Stanley. He was a small red American engine who was proud of himself and was known to His name was Stanley, and he was a small red American engine who was proud of himself and was known to work very hard. Duke smiled at this. He had a feeling that this engine was going to be very helpful. And for the next few weeks, Stanley worked harder than ever. He worked hard, then Duke had... And for the next few weeks, Stanley worked harder than ever. He worked harder than Duke had done all his life. But then another engine came to the line to help. He was called Andreas. He was a small engine, but was also a cocky and boastful engine, and bragged to everyone how hard of a worker he was. Stanley, however, took this as a threat. They would argue all the time, show each other how hard they worked, and to others even. But this all led to Stanley's demise. For Stanley tried so hard he began to push trucks off the rails by accident, and at times even on purpose. He grew not only a bad reputation, but also a horrible engine. The manager, however, tried to send Stanley away, but no one would buy him. They would say he was too reckless, or a horrible engine. But the manager and Duke had sympathy for Stanley, because they knew deep down that he was a good engine. But the manager also knew that he couldn't keep Stanley as an engine. So instead he turned him into a generator at the back of the shed. Eric laughed at this. Duke, however, didn't Andreas laughed at this. Duke, however, didn't find the situation particularly funny. Eric laughed at this. Duke, however, didn't find the situation particularly funny. Stanley stayed there for years and years, but one day it happened. No one knew how exactly, but Stanley simply exploded. Duke arrived to help with the devastation. He was in shock as he watched the firemen who had arrived cool down the flames, but there was nothing they could do for Stanley. He was gone. And that, my friends, is what happened to Stanley. The manager at the time didn't want the information to leak out into the press, and so it was to be kept under wraps. Yes, the odd few people knew about it, but it never spread. I didn't know about it until Duke told me a few years ago, during the Mid-Sodor Railway anniversary. No, that was just a different name that Duke used, because he couldn't bear to say Stanley's name until he told me. That's because it was haunted before. You see, ever since the accident, a number of people throughout the years have reported mysterious sights of fog and the sound of a piercing whistle and a chugging noise from an engine at night. You see, ever since the accident, a number of people throughout the years have reported mysterious sights of fog and the sound of a piercing whistle and a chugging noise of an engine at night. One person, however, went to investigate, but when he came back, he was pale and his eyes were a dark red. He never spoke about what he saw, but many people had speculated that he saw the ghost of Stanley. My guess is that building the new line has disturbed his spirit. It is very much true, and if you don't believe me, how about you go and see the ghost for yourself? Be careful. Be careful. I tried to warn them. That's odd. There wasn't any mention of fog today. Perhaps, but it makes the journey much harder to see. It must have been Mike or Jock. Oh, it's just Mike. Mike? Very funny, Olivia.